Hello, I'm Eduardo, and you are watching the Cloud Therapy channel.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist channel. I'm Richard Simon. This is the first episode of AI State of Play. It's the inaugural episode. This is going to be focusing on the first quarter of 2024 for this new segment. I'm hoping that this segment is going to become as regular as Class State of Play, but maybe kind of quarterly to begin with, and we'll see how kind of things go and what kind of topics we want to discuss and what guests we have on as well. So we'll see how things basically go. But it's definitely something that I've kind of wanted to do. In fact, I was kind of thinking about it from last year actually. But due to various issues, copyright issues, and some other things, I've not really been able to release anything in AI State of Play until now. But we're here and we are ready to kick off. And yeah, we'll definitely kind of do some catching up as well on some of the topics and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to welcome Eduardo to this first talk. And hopefully Eduardo will be back again. Will be kind of a recurring guest on AI State of Play in the future. Let's see how things go. But yeah, let's say hello to Eduardo and get things going. So Eduardo, welcome to the Cloud Therapist channel.
Thanks a lot for bringing me here today. I'm so happy to be with you and all the people who is going to join this podcast.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming on and actually doing this inaugural edition of episode of AI State of Play. So let's have a quick intro to you for those people who don't know who you are and so on, and then we'll kind of go into the topics.
Yeah, sure. My name is Eduardo Ordax. I'm based in Madrid, but 50% of my time I'm traveling around the world. Currently, I'm working at AWS as a go-to-market lead for AI, ML, Generative AI across EMEA. So that means, I'm helping many customers on how to, harness and leverage all the potential of AI, sometimes more, a business discussions, some other times more technical discussions. And yeah, that's what I'm doing almost half the time of my life right now.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's kind of what we want to definitely hear. So in the original tradition of cloud state of play, again, AI state of play is going to pick on 3 topics. So we picked on 3 for this particular quarter. And those topics are, number 1, how will enterprises implement AI? There's a lot of talk around sort of what would that look like, and what kind of sort of technologies are going to be adopted, and how is that going to be implemented, and where, and things like that. So I'd love to kind of get Eduardo's take on that. The second one is Agentic AI. This has actually come up quite a lot in the last few months, and also different types of technologies, solutions, techniques, how you actually develop agents and things like that. So again, I'll be exploring that with Eduardo. And then the last one is, what is RAG? RAG seems to kind of have come up a lot as well this year, 2024. So again, it'll be really interesting getting Eduardo's take on that, and we'll give you some clues on some of the stuff that Eduardo's actually produced in that space, which is fantastic. Okay, so let's kick off on the first topic. So how will enterprises implement AI? Now, I've kind of picked up a lot of details on this, Eduardo, over this sort of the last few months, both on LinkedIn and various other sources, some of this sort of IT technology newsletters and things like that that I'm subscribed to. And I've kind of got this an impression around somebody who's actually been on the channel before. I think you're probably connected to him, Matteo Castiello. He does a lot of posts and things like that. He generates a lot of content around the space. Again, another opinionated person in the AI space. So he kind of pointed something around what Gartner was saying, and what he, I think, agreed with, was around this sort of the build, buy, and acquire type of approach. I actually wrote something as an article, which I think I shared with you, which kind of did something similar as well. I kind of said, the build it yourself, the kind of go and get an existing kind of a model, and then maybe just kind of use somebody else's model that's kind of customized for your space. What's your take on this, and how do you see sort of enterprises really implementing AI?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say like there is not like one single answer, because I've seen many different approaches, right? One of the nice things about generative AI is like it's super easy to start using it, right? And sometimes that's even the problem about generative AI, because it's so simple. Enterprise believe that like it's super straightforward to put something into production, to start like getting value from it, and they realize that it's not actually like that, right? So they have to come back and they have to take different approaches. I would say you have like right now, if I have like to define three main ways to start using AI or generative AI, you can just like buy the solution. So you can use, for example, of course you can use ChatGPT. You pay the subscription and you start using it. You can build something on top of generative AI via calling like these models via API. Like I'm start like calling Claude or Llama, but I don't need to do any deployment of models. I don't need to administrate the infra. I don't need like to monitor the model. So it's just more about like software developers building applications on top of AI, right? And the other option is like, okay, I'm going to deploy my own LLMs or my own small language models that I want to, I don't know, to fine tune based on my data, or to take like a different approach, and that requires like more understanding about like how to implement MLOps, monitoring strategies, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I think I agree as well, and this has not necessarily been an industry agreement or standard around this, but things have kind of maybe coalesced around these three sorts of approaches. And I think even was it Andy Jassy from at the reInvent last year? I think I actually screenshotted the presentation, the keynote that he was giving, because he actually came up with the GenAI stack on one of his slides. And he kind of approached it in the same way. So you have your kind of infrastructure for training and inference. That's kind of your base implementation. You've got the tools to build the LLMs and bring in foundational models that have already been trained. So that's kind of your middle tier. And then the kind of the apps tier, if you like, or the SaaS tier, as I would call it, which is kind of the top tier. So I think I really like that, because I think Andy kind of hit the what people were saying and understanding on the head when he kind of put up that slide, and that kind of made a lot of sense in terms of how it will be adopted. So I did a kind of a similar thing. What I wanted to do on the article that I wrote back in when was it? I think it was in March we did that. And again, I was like I said, I was seeing these sort of patterns appearing, and then I thought, okay, so maybe we can make it look like how we describe cloud, for example. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Now, if you kind of, so I called it sort of AI IaaS, AI PaaS, and AI SaaS, basically. I just kind of,
it's valid. It's valid.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your opinion around that, though? I'm interested to know kind of how do you feel, because we're seeing lots of people are kind of in the POC and pilot stage at the moment. So they're evaluating, they're looking at it and seeing kind of how it's going to work out for their business and so on. But where do you kind of maybe see, and this, I know this, appreciate this kind of a little bit sort of projecting into the future, but where do you kind of maybe see the majority of enterprises kind of doing? Is it kind of the AI SaaS, or where do you see that sort of landing?
Yeah, I think more like most of them, they are trying to build the stuff, right? The problem, as I said before, is like GenAI, it's super simple to start working with it, and we are seeing all the time, and I think that's why like all the success of this like technology, because everyone can use it, right? So enterprises are doing pretty much the same. Main problem is like many of these enterprises, they even were not mature enough in terms of pure ML or pure like a data strategy, right? So they face many challenges that they are not even related to GenAI. They are, like challenges related to traditional ML, like how I'm going to deploy the model, or, like how good is the data that I have? Because again, yeah, you can use a very good model, but if your data sucks, I mean, like the output you are going to get is like so wrong, right? So, but I would say most of the customers right now, they are trying, like to build the stuff. Probably, like end users is more about, like using SaaS or, like subscription to this GenAI application, so I can create music, or I can create my own avatar, or I can do a summary of something. But enterprises, they are trying to build, and most of them, they are using an API approach. And probably because an API approach, like it's different to, if we look back to 12 months ago, it was quite expensive to use LLMs. If we compare, for example, the price of models like GPT or Claude, it's, like the new models, they are, like 100 times even cheaper than they were to be 12 months ago, right? So using API right now, it's cost effective, right? And you don't need to, like have all this operational overhead of, like deploying models, maintaining models. I mean, like how to scale GPUs to deploy all these models. It's different if you deploy the 7B model than if you deploy, for example, Llama for 400 billions, right? That it's quite complex. So most of them, they're trying to go with this approach of, like API. But it has a problem at the same time. Like as soon as you want to have a model that it's super good or it's very specialized on doing some specific tasks that they are unique for your business, maybe these generic models, they are not good enough, right? And you can get much better performance by using a smaller, fine-tuned model. That, yeah, it requires to, like fine-tune the model, test the model, validate it, deploying, and so on, right? So it requires more expertise. It requires what we used to call MLOps. And of course, it requires time. So if we analyze right now the market, I think latest report from Gartner, they were saying like around 10% of the customers, they have, like move successfully into production with GenAI. Only 10%. So, like even if you are asking me about how many of them they are, like deploying and fine-tuning successfully LLMs or SLMs, they are even probably much less than 1%, right? So I think we are going to be there. Eventually, we will be there. But this is a problem, like the learning curve. I mean, like many roles are super new. You cannot, like use GenAI if you don't have a data strategy, if you don't have an ML strategy. We used to think like, hey, it's enough if we have prompt engineers or software developers, but it's not enough actually, because you need to have unique expertise on how this model performs, how to test it, how to validate it. I mean, like, this is not just about taking an LLM. We are all the time, and this is also, like the fault of the media and all this hype. We are all the time talking about what is going to come next. We are going to have, like PhD level models, then Nobel Prize level models. But we are not talking about, okay, how important is to monitor the quality of the prompts, or to avoid, for example, prompt injection, or how to do chunking efficiently. So these are these other, like not very sexy things that at the end of the day, this is what is going to provide business. So I think, like in general, enterprises, they are trying to build, but they are still in the very early days. I mean, like I'm so tired of, like asking customers, and still many of them, they are saying to you, yeah, we are assessing different options. We are piloting this, piloting that. But when you ask about, hey, running in production successfully, still very low. And what it's in production is for internal purposes. If you're asking me, GenAI for, like external use case, for example, like, like how to enhance customer experience via, I don't know, like a real chatbots and so on. Yes, like very few cases, because it still has, like some problems and concerns about how it's going to react, how it's going to behave, and so on. So very early days, I would say.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, and I pick up on all the points that you mentioned. The one I was looking at was kind of, looking at it from a business perspective and the value. If I'm a ABC company, and I'm in insurance, or I'm in manufacturing or health or something, I'm not really an AI company, but I would love to use AI. but there's no reason for me to go and build it myself if somebody else has built it. So I can actually just go and make use of and utilize and consume that model and maybe customize it, with whatever techniques to my data set, or upload my data set, into that, rather than having to build it from scratch, which is why I think, as we were kind of saying, we'll probably see a lot of people kind of do all these POCs and pilots and then actually realize they're not in the AI business, but they would love to use AI. So they'll maybe therefore kind of turn to more sort of SaaS solutions. The other point around the cost going down, another chap which has been on the channel, Peter Gostev, he's also quite sort of prolific on on posting and things like that, and he's actually been posting quite a lot around sort of the cost of models, sort of coming down as well per query and per token and things like that as well. So that's quite interesting. Obviously, we've seen a little bit around sort of, do we do LLMs, do we do SLMs, and where things are maybe more portable or mobile, or you're in a remote location or using phones and things like that, we might see these sort of more personal applications using more SLMs. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the power of SLMs is like they are much faster, much faster. You don't need this huge amount of computation, so they are, like even much cheaper, and they are going to perform the same as a big model if you, for example, fine tune for a specific task, right? So because at the end of the day, if you are creating, for example, I don't know, a chatbot to manage, like ordering queries from the customers, you just need the chatbot to perform super well on this. I mean, like this is like going to the Olympics. You are not running the 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, the 1500, the marathon. You just train for one single task. I mean, like, why I'm going to need a model to perform very good in, like very different things, right? So I think this is what is happening with SLMs. They are still, I think, like all their powers, they are still undercover. I mean, like this is going to come eventually, but because we are not so mature yet, the customers, they don't have, even first of all, it's not like they don't have the skills to fine tune. Even sometimes the problem it's before that. They even don't have the right data to fine tune the model. So we'll have to face, like every challenge at its time, right? So we will be there. Right now, there are already some good companies, for example, RC.ai, right? And Julien Simons went there a few months ago, right? They're doing something that is super cool. They are, like fine-tuning these small models. They are even doing it by the customer, making the customers, they don't know how to do it. They, like go to the customers, take the data, fine-tune the model, and so on. So probably, like we will see more companies doing that. And I think completely makes sense. But again, it depends on the use case. I mean, like you have to make a balance, right? If the time and the cost that it's going to take to fine-tune a small model is going to be much higher than just using, like a model as it is or out of the box, you need to do these trade-offs, right? Because sometimes what I'm not agree is like when you see the media, and this is, like depends on what it's saying the story, right? You go to a model provider, a proprietary model provider, like Anthropic, OpenAI, whoever, and they are going to tell you like, hey, don't fine tune a model. It's enough just with prompt engineering, right?
Yeah.
If you go to open source community or this, like, for example, Mark Zuckerberg using Llama, they will tell you all the time like, hey, don't use proprietary models, take these, fine tune, and so on.
Yeah.
Probably the solution, it's in between, it's in the middle. It's like, okay, depending on the use case, this is what is going to happen. But in proprietary models right now, they allow to fine-tune their models. OpenAI allowed to fine-tune the model. You can fine-tune, for example, Haiku with Amazon Bedrock. You can fine-tune also, I don't remember what's the other one. AI21, they allow you to fine-tune their models, and it's a proprietary one, right? So I mean, like it will be something in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another person who's kind of quite opinionated, Armand Ruiz from IBM, was also kind of pointing out the differences between SLMs and LLMs. So small language models, by the way, if that's what SLM stands for, and LLMs being large language models as well. So there's another article which I will I'll attach to the video. Now, on the just sticking on this point about sort of enterprises using AI, we've kind of talked about a little bit kind of what the adoption would be like, and we kind of maybe aiming more. They would aim more towards the value. So how can we get quick value out of it? Uploading all our data sets. Okay, so AI SaaS kind of seems to be like a good approach. Okay, now in terms of developers, we've seen things like GitHub Copilot and Stack Overflow's kind of got their own version now, and things like that. I think it's would you say it's a little bit more clear sort of view when it comes to developers in terms of what they get out of sort of generative AI?
Yeah, I think in this case it's like widely adopted. That's a reality. It's not something that is going to happen. It's widely adopted. I mean, like right now it's super complicated to find a developer who is like coding like in the old days, like even like looking for code in the internet or in Stack Overflow. I mean, like it's completely useless because I've coded many years in my life, and I always say the same thing. I'm not good at coding. Probably it's not like I'm not good. It's even like I don't like
I'm
it.
sure you're better than me.
I remember
I haven't done any
like,
coding for like decades.
Well, I remember like back in the old days, coding the whole night in Java, and it was like so annoying for me trying like to. And 20 years ago, it was much harder because we didn't have enough examples on the internet, right?
Right.
And I used to like find for like functions if it was there, like how I'm going to code it from scratch, right? So I mean, like software developers, I really admire them. So let's use them in the right manner, like for tasks that they are like providing really value. So if you need to create a function that it's super straightforward and it's going to take your time, don't do it. Yes, like the problem, of course, is like if we are using just like LLMs like our copilots or cursor with Sonnet, and we are just like including the code and we are not reviewing it, right? So that's the main problem. I mean, like it's about like keeping good practices when coding, and keeping good practices when coding is not about using one technology on the other. It's about including like integration testing, stress testing, A/B testing, good practices to make sure that the code is going to be high quality. But yeah, I would say right now, even like Karpathy put a tweet a couple of weeks ago about like how he was coding, and he said like 50% of my coding right now is just English, because like he's prompting stuff, getting the code, reviewing the code, integrating the code, reviewing again. So this is the reality. And I think here even our CEO at Andy said like also 1 week ago, like probably like this is going to save, I'm not sure, it was like 4,600 hours per developer in terms of like using this generative AI or LLMs for coding. So this is a reality, absolutely.
Yeah, and I did actually see a webinar, this was a few months ago, of Bedrock being used. So I think the guys chose Anthropic Claude. I think it was the SLM version, so it's a Haiku or something SLM. So what they did was they dropped a very simplistic JPEG of a AWS architecture for an application into the model, and then they prompted the model to describe what it could see in that diagram. The model described the diagram and all the interconnection between all the modules and bits of the app and the architecture. And then they asked it to generate a CloudFormation script, and it promptly generated a CloudFormation script. And then they asked it, just to go a little bit extra, they asked it to convert that to a Terraform script as well, which it automatically did. So yeah, I mean, obviously they would have to kind of go in, maybe customize and play around with the script, but the basics of that was done very quickly. So I think, yeah, I agree that on the coding side, the development side, and even software testing kind of thing as well, so kind of QA and stuff like that, I think that's a lot more of a clear case when it comes to the actual use of GenAI. Okay, so let's move on to the second topic, Agentic AI. So what's your definition, Eduardo, of Agentic AI?
So for me, in a very simple manner, right? Because there are like many different definitions. And I like you said, like, because even Andrew and G said like a few time ago, let's call it Agentic AI, not agents, because we already had, like agents for so many years, right? So for me, agentic AI is just, like in a very simple manner, right? Because it's not 100% accurate, but it's LLMs taking actions. And that, I think that's the real power of LLMs. I mean, like, I don't want to have LLMs or foundation models just, like to regurgitate information or to, like give you information and so on. But eventually, and the last time I want LLMs to execute actions. And for me, that's agents, like that you can ask for, like specific things and they can do it. Maybe some actions will be more complex and you need to decompose in smaller ones. This is a different discussion, right? But this is what it's for me. Yes, like LLMs taking actions.
Right. Yeah. And I think, yeah, there is kind of maybe some more, there is some immediate and low-hanging fruits when it comes to the solutions or use cases, for that. So maybe kind of personal assistance with your schedule and calendar and, things like that. Maybe even answering phone calls for you or something like that. That would be kind of maybe the initial sort of thing. But I think longer term, there's definitely applications in those, maybe hazardous environments, maybe like mining or underwater, or even, space exploration as well. All these kind of, space probes and vehicles and so on can actually be making use of that. And clearly in business like trading and stuff like that, that could also be sort of a use case as well. Now, again, there was some posts around from Matteo Castiello around that and sort of agents on a page, which is quite useful. I'll try and include the description of the link for that in the description of the video. So that was quite useful. McKinsey and Capgem also put out some information around this, so why agents are the next frontier from McKinsey, and GenAI in organizations from Capgemini. That was released earlier this year as well. So yeah, so how do you kind of see this developing? Are we going to be, am I going to sit in front of a GenAI model and say to it, hey, I need you to write me an agentic, agent, or I need you to write me an agent, and I want the agent to do X, Y, Z, and then it goes, okay, here's the code. Is that the kind of thing that we see, or are we going to kind of hand knit everything ourselves when it comes to kind of, agentic AI?
So probably, I mean, like, as I said before, we are still in the very early days. So one thing is about, like, which is the art of the possible. And the very different thing is like what we are doing today. Because, I mean, like, the gap is huge. I mean, like, right now, like, LLMs can do stuff that even I could not imagine, even not 5 years ago, probably 2 years ago. So they are doing like great stuff. Different discussions is like if we are reaching kind of a roof, but that's a different discussion, right? So how I see agentic is like in the near future, you will have like a very powerful model, like a very powerful LLM that is going to be, like the one that is going to orchestrate everything. And it will have, like different sub-orchestrators that maybe they are not like as powerful as the main one, but they are very good on something. So it's like any enterprise, you have your CEO, then you have your CFO, your HR director, your CPO, whatever. So I think LLMs in some manner, they are going to operate in the same aspect, where you will have one powerful one, you can plan a specific task, you can orchestrate, you can get feedback, you can send it back again, and you will be able to make very complex things. Of course, depending on, like how critical these processes are, you will need to include human in the loop. Of course, it's not the same. For example, if I want to write a novel, that, like, it's not the same. For example, like prompting an LLM to, okay, write me a novel on a story about blah, 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 then, hey, write me the novel, then review it, then trying to, based on how you review it, find different synonyms of whatever, and then do. So if you give it like, like 15 different steps, the output you are going to get is much better, right? Like if I will do it, I mean, like if I'm writing a novel, which are the kind of things that I'm doing, right? So I think it's happening in the same manner. But for many critical aspects, like for example, I don't know, industrial processes, you also need to include, like human in the loop, or like some folks that they are like reviewing what is happening, they need to validate or not. But this is how I see agents. I'm not seeing agents. For me, like it's straightforward to have an agent like, hey, give me the status of my order. Okay, I'm an agent. I can connect to an external tool like the CRM. I'm like retrieving the data. I'm sending back. So I think that part it should be like super well understood, and it should be like perfectly assumed to start executing today. But even many customers, they're even not there. I mean, like it's straightforward, but the customers, they're even not using it. But for me, the real aspect is when we're talking about like a meta agents, like like many agents collaborating together. Some agents, it may be like AI agents. But some agent, it could be like something like super simple, like I don't know, a machine learning model to detect anomaly detection, right? So this is how I see in the near future, like multiple agents collaborating together to achieve one specific task.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I can see, maybe in things like, I've ordered something and I need to return it, but I don't want to go through the returns process for a product from Amazon or something. So I can get maybe, I don't necessarily have to have my own agent. I can maybe just, use the Agentic AI sort of interface that Amazon has provided in their app. I can just kick that off, press the button, and then it will go and take care of all of that. And it'll also take care of any interactions that I need to do, like, take a photo of the product and says arrived damaged or something, or answer a question of, the Amazon shopping agent wants to ask about the return or something. So, maybe they, I have multiple addresses, and then it will say, okay, so which address you want to use, but it will take care of all of that for me, for example, because it knows my, let's say, primary address and things like that. So we could also see maybe agentic AI kind of being modular and reusable. So somebody's created something, and we go like on a like a online store or something, and say, oh yeah, that looks close to what I want to do, and I can kind of use that as a modular approach. A guy called Andrew Ng from Deep Learning AI put out a post around agentic workflows, which I thought was quite interesting. So again, I'll include details of that in the description of the video, and that's kind of all around this sort of agentic sort of use case.
Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to our third topic. Now, I know that you've done a little bit of work around this, Eduardo, so I'll let you go on that in a minute. And this is around RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. But let's first get a just kind of a quick definition. What's your take on RAG?
In a very simple manner, right? I love to give this example, because this is where I'm talking like to non-very technical people to explain what is RAG, right? So I'm going to the exam. I've studied a lot, but I was not able to read all the book, right? So during the exam, because I don't have that knowledge in my mind, like if the teacher is asking a specific question, but because I have the book behind me, the teacher can say, like, hey, if you want, you can find the answer on the book. So it's not in my brain, but I can open the book. Of course, I need to see the answer. I need to see the question, and I need to look for the answer. I put the answer, end of story. This is RAG. So the models has been trained on, a huge amount of data from internet, books, videos, whatever, but they have not been trained on your, for example, enterprise data, on your customer data. So if you are asking an LLM about, like what is the policy for holidays in your enterprise X, you need to check your internal documents, for example, your intranet, to check, okay, this is the policy for holidays, and I will send it back to the LLM, and it will generate an answer. So this is RAG. When the model does not have the info within it, I can, like use external knowledge bases to augment and to generate a new answer.
Yeah, and I think you did a great series on RAG, there's lots of information that you posted. How many parts was that, by the way? Was it just 2 parts that you did, or is it more than?
Well, I post a lot about RAG because you know, like a
There
RAG
was a
is
lot of stuff in that
because you
post.
have RAG and then you
Yeah.
have all different components within RAG, right? That it takes a lot of time to go through all of them. But yeah, I post a lot like cheat sheets for RAG, techniques for chunking, techniques for advanced retrieval, techniques for evaluation. So yeah, I post a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, it was quite extensive, but really useful. And again, I'll include a link in the description for Eduardo's efforts on that, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, I learned a lot from just from really looking at a couple of the the sources and the videos that you provided. So yes, I think it's kind of looking at, this is ironic. I thought I'll ask maybe Copilot to give me a definition, which is a bit ironic because you're kind of asking something of the platform that actually kind of uses RAG itself and so on to learn. So I asked Copilot about what is RAG, and it's kind of said, it's the enhancing the performance of generative AI models by adding information from external sources into the generative part of the model. So it broke down the retrieval, augmentation, and generations. That's the 3 parts. So the retrieval is the user query or the prompt, and that's kind of gets you relevant interface. So it goes off and does the usual stuff of trying to get that from a knowledge base or a database or whatever it feels it is. And then the augmentation is use the retrieved information to augment the query. So you're kind of adding back into the prompt, you're kind of adding back into the query. And then the generation is the feeding the augmented query into the GenAI model. So now you've kind of enhanced the query, the prompt, and you're going to feed it into the GenAI model, and you get a more, again, according to Copilot, you get a more accurate response, more contextual relevancy, and more accuracy. Or rather more up to date as well. So accurate, more context, sort of relevant, and more up to date. And the idea is that you're reducing hallucinations, I guess, which is kind of the when GenAI models kind of mess up the output, their response, and maybe domain specific knowledge. Would that kind of make sense if we were talking about sort of SaaS and maybe a company's in the sort of manufacturing business, or it's in the health business or something, and we can kind of make it more specific to them.
Yeah, that part's a bit tricky, right? Because this is again when I had many discussions about fine-tuning versus RAG. I've seen many people saying like, hey, you don't have to fine-tune models, just use RAG. And also the other way, like, hey, you don't need to use RAG, just use fine-tuning. Again, this is not one way or the other. We can use both of them at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to get very specific domain knowledge, it depends on the use case, right? So if I want, for example, to query specific knowledge for one domain, I can use RAG as an external base and I can query it, right? But if it's more about a use case that, I don't know, it's, for example, a doctor assistant that it wants to talk to the patient about the kind of, symptoms, disease that he or she has, and you started having a very technical discussion, it's not about RAG. Maybe you need a model that has been fine-tuned on a specific domain knowledge. And this is not even fine-tuned, it's more like continuous pre-train. When I have a model and I continuous pre-train this model on very specific domain knowledge. So the model knows the vocabulary about, I don't know, healthcare or about laws or whatever, right? So sometimes you need to analyze like, okay, RAG is the solution or fine-tune is the solution, or maybe both, right? So the thing is like, maybe it's better to start, just using RAG because RAG, it may be very complex, but still it should be more simple than fine-tuning. So you can assess starting with RAG, evaluate the answer and the quality of the outputs, and you can decide like, okay, this is not enough, let's go and fine-tune the model. But of course the purposes they're different. Like RAG is to augmenting the knowledge of the model.
Right.
Fine-tuning is to augment the quality of the model doing a specific task. So task versus knowledge. So, and then you need to decide.
Okay. So as you were kind of talking about, something came into my head about that. So, so is the RAG feature, let's say, of these LLMs enabled all the time, or is this something that you kind of have to enable? I mean, we have a lot of open source models that have come out, and these have kind of been made available by various organizations and so on, and that's kind of really seen a huge growth of that in this year. So is RAG kind of always now part of those models, and is it kind of enabled by default, or is this something that you kind of say we need to do it?
It's something that you need to build. Something that some models have is, like access to the internet. So if you are asking the model for the president of Argentina, just to make sure, like it gives the right answer, it's like, okay, I will check in the internet as an external base, right? That is also about using, like external tools at the same time, and then I will give you the information, right? But at the end of the day, you can use RAG with any different model. So regardless of the model you are using, you have to build your RAG solution. And then it's when you have like many different components, like which kind of database I'm going to use. I'm going to use a vector database or a pure vector database, how I'm going to chunk my documents, how I'm going to do the retrieval. Because as I said during the example, right, it's very simple. If somebody asks me something and I have to find the answer in one book, let's say I'm in the exam, but instead of having one single book, I have 1,000 books to find the answer. That's a completely different story. So we can start, like implementing these advanced techniques. Like, okay, I want to search by summary. I want to search by keyword, or I want to search by semantic meaning. So there are many different approaches. So you have to build that, right? And this is something, or this is why, like RAG in like by definition, it seems super simple. So customers get excited because they say like, hey, this is the solution to all my problems. My models, they're not going to hallucinate again.
Yeah.
Then they implement it and they realize that it's complex, right? Because for example, let's say you are asking the model, you augment the model with your external knowledge bases, and you have the answer, the same answer, written in two different manners. Or in one in one point you are saying like, okay, this is black. In the other you are saying like, this is white. So it's black, it's white, it's gray. You are confusing the model, right? So that's why like RAG it's complex. It's not like if you are building a chatbot, simple chatbot with like some Q&A. It's simple. You have the Q&A documents, straightforward. But like if you have 1,000 of 100 of documents, that's a different story.
Yeah, and I guess you would. I mean, what would you do what would be the RAG technique, or how would the RAG technique be used in that? I presume they would have to go back and check for accuracy, have expertise in that space to kind of review that and make sure there's no errors or hallucinations, right?
Yeah, when like people is asking me about which is the best way to go in terms of like techniques for RAG and so on. Of course, experience is going to give you some like guidelines on which way to or the other to use. But at the end, it's a lot of like trial and fail. Like, okay, I'm going to experiment. Let's experiment with a reduced number of documents, then trying to scale, coming back, use different techniques, combine different techniques. You can use agents with RAG as well. You can use agents where like different agents, they are performing different techniques. They can be orchestrated. Like, okay, one agent is going to do like, for example, query regretting, because for example, when we are using RAG, we are assuming that the people who is asking the model is doing the answer, is asking in the right manner. Maybe sometimes you need to regret, like the question in a different manner. So you may have different agents working together, implementing RAG. So as I said, RAG can be super complex. Most of the time it's about like experience and a lot of experimentation. It requires a lot of experimentation, to be honest.
Right, and you also in the post that you did, you talked about different RAG types. So there was like an adaptive, corrective, self-RAG, and so on. What's kind of what's happening there?
Yeah, it's also about, like the different techniques for RAG, right? Like you can, like self-correct, like, okay, this is also for agents, right? You are giving an answer and you need to, as an LM, ask yourself if the answer is accurate, it's, like relevant for the kind of input that I provided, then it evaluates again. So it's at the end of the day, everything is like advanced techniques just to increase the accuracy or the quality of the output that I'm going to generate. And I think RAG it's endless. I mean, like there are hundreds of different techniques where you can combine many other. There are like many different papers. Every single day you can see about, like new techniques. So it's about that. Like you have basic RAG. So basic RAG is like, okay, I, like index my knowledge base. I ask a question, I search for, like a similarity, the first result, I give it back, end of story. Advanced RAG is when, as I said before, you implement many of these different techniques, even combined together to increase the quality of the output that is going to be generated.
Right. Yeah. So I think, as you said, I think you're right in terms of, organizations have to kind of look at that carefully and then see what's going to fit for them. It might be down to, per, I don't know, per industry sector or something. Some, techniques might work for one and the others, might not work for them or something. So
yeah, and there are, like many things that you need to consider at the beginning, because for example, something that, sometimes you don't think, like, okay, I'm using an LM because, when you are using RAG, one of the first things that you have to do is to generate the embeddings of your, like documents or your information, right?
Yeah.
Because the only way is like they can be, or they can understand one to each other is like when you convert everything into embeddings, right? So if I'm using Model A, for example, to generate the embeddings, right? And I'm storing everything on my vector DB, for example, if I want to change the model, like, okay, I find a model that is going to perform better, they have to realize that they need to redo everything from scratch, because, like the model that you use to create your vector DB is not going to be compatible with the first one. So you need to redo everything from scratch. So, or even the chunking as well. If you decide to do chunking in some manner and you change over time, maybe you need to review your vector DB. So when you are taking decisions, you need to be very carefully, because maybe sometimes you will need to come back and start from scratch again. It's not like there are, like different components that you can modify and you can orchestrate. Some, just maybe changing one single component is going, like to destroy the entire building. So that's why it's, like very delicate to do RAG at scale and successfully.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably love to get you back in just to kind of just go through all of these terms and so on. There's so many new terms to learn and things like that. So we've kind of tried to maybe tackle a few of those today, but we'll maybe have you back in for, we'll just do a terms, an AI terms special maybe, or something like that in the future. Okay, well, I think we're pretty much there for this particular episode. First of all, I just want to thank Eduardo for your input and insights. It's been fantastic to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming on to this first episode of AI State of Play. I really appreciate your time. Yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I'll include all the information about Eduardo and all his posts and stuff like that in the description of the video. So do check that out. I do try to put up a lot of info in the description. Do let me know what you think about this new segment. Make some comments, drop some likes, reshare it, and see how your friends and colleagues might enjoy it as well. And also let me know if you have any particular topics that you want me to cover as well in the future. So we've kind of done a few today and kind of just picked on a few that I agreed with Eduardo. But I'm sure many of you have kind of, are either looking at AI or generative AI and kind of maybe doing some POCs, maybe playing with it on your own, computers, and maybe even having a go at Amazon's Bedrock, which I thought was kind of fantastic. The playground is fantastic there. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. So as the sort of the audience and the subscribers, like I said, if there is anything specific that you want me to cover in this particular segment, which, like I said, I'm hoping to make it a regular segment, do let me know. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Bye for now.